Dear Diary, it's April 24th, 2025. This is diary entry number 4, and I haven't been around for a couple weeks. I've had a few things in my life that have happened. Not to get into too much specifics, but unfortunately, I did have some. My best friend's father passed away, and a few other things as well. So, it was a very tough week, but I think a lot of people have had tough weeks, tough years, tough decades. Talking about Palestine, right? That's how it is. So, uh, I appreciate you all being here. We're in the midst of Sick Awareness and Appreciation Month, which is super important for my community because of the amount of education that it has provided for my community. So I definitely wanted to give a shout out there. But one of the things that I'm deeply concerned about is as my community's profile rises, as Americans start to know who the Sikh community is, understands that they can destigmatize the turban and all those things, what does that say about our Muslim brothers and sisters? What does that say about our Latin American brothers and sisters? There's many communities. What does that say about our LGBTQ brothers and sisters? And I think that there's many communities that are being thrown under the bus under the guise of uh like protection of communities, but we're going to suspend free speech as a result of these quote unquote protectionist measures. So I would like to start with giving some shout outs. I think that it's really important, even with politicians that we don't agree with, when they do our bidding, we have to give them credit. That doesn't mean that we just like completely forget all of the things that they did wrong, but we have to give credit where credit is due. So Senator Van Hollen from Maryland started a little seismic shift where now legislators are like, oh, that's right, we can go to these areas to check in on the people that are getting the short end of the stick from a fascist regime. He goes to El Salvador. He meets with Gilmar Abrego Garcia, and of course, Nayib Bukele's government. They definitely do a little bit of a staged picture. They Photoshop it, this, that, whatever. But he meets with him, and he gets at the very least a proof of life for his wife and his son. And you know what that did for Gilmar Abrego Garcia in that moment to get him out of his prison at CCOT just for the time being, you know, it may have actually helped him quite a bit in that moment. But we can't take the pedal off the metal. We have to continue to go full gas ahead. And so we look at how these movements are all intertwined and how we're losing free speech in real time. So Mohsen Mahdawi, and I apologize if I butchered any of these names. I really do apologize. As a person who has his name butchered every now and then, I do apologize. But Mohsen Mahdawi was visited by his Senator Peter Welch in Vermont. And for those of you, I think most of my audience knows this already, but Mohsen is Palestinian. He's Palestinian Buddhist. I guess he converted to Buddhism at some point. And he is a man who is threatening to the Zionist agitators and these Zionist terroristic organizations. He's threatening to them because he's talking about equal rights. So to an apartheid state, equal rights is a threat because apartheid states, they only work if you have a supremacist bent to them. That like white South Africa, apartheid South Africa, it only worked at the expense of the Black population. Jim Crow America only worked at the expense of the Black population in America. And similarly, apartheid the Jewish state of Israel can only work in a land where it's roughly it's almost half Palestinian and half Israeli Jews. It can only work if you deny rights to the Palestinian people. So he is a threat because he imagines a post-apartheid world without walls, with one democratic state where people have equal rights. And a Palestinian who was born in Palestine saying this as a green card holder in America, and get this, basically being told, okay, this is your citizenship test meeting, and we're going to we're calling you in, you're about to get your citizenship, as a pretext to get him to come in to a federal building only to be arrested by ICE agents. It's disgusting. This man simply is, and you listen to his words, he's a pacifist. But without further ado, I can just share with you his words to Senator Welch. So real quick, let me share my screen and can watch this.
Your friend from the effort Mohsen, we've been having a nice talk, but I'd like to know how you're doing and what you hope to accomplish. How is your team so positive despite your service?
Thank you for the visit. It really means a lot and reassured me of the support that I have from you and from the Vermonters as well, by people who so Vermont. I'm staying positive by reassuring my citizens that irrespective of justice and the need to be democracy. It's the reason I wanted to come back in this country, because I believe it's a principle of this country.
You told me you were preparing for your citizenship exam, players and things. When you were detained, one of the questions you were going to answer, just explain that about rights.
One of the most important questions that was the most important right is the Bill of Rights, which includes the free speech on the top, right? Freedom of assembly, freedom of press, freedom of having religion or not having religion at all. And I learned also in this that I have to study for, that the freedom of speech, of religion, and assembly is guaranteed to everyone in the United States, which is part of the foundation of this country.
Well, I want you to also, Secretary Rubio, Secretary of Foreign Policy, can you just tell us what you were hoping for and how you work with some of the Jewish fellows?
My activism, so they are specifically describing the anti-war as anti-Semitic. How could that be possible when most of my partners at Columbia campus and beyond are Jews and Israelis? My work has been centered on things, and all what I'm doing, I am being a human. My empathy has been for extends beyond the Palestinians, and my empathy extends to the Jews and to the Israelis. And my hope and my dream is to see this conflict, one might say, to see an end to the war and end to the see a peaceful resolution between Palestinians and Israelis. How could this be addressed to anyone except the war machine that are
Be good for everything.
I want to tell everyone that I feel so loved and so supported. And I am here in good hands. I am centered, I am clear, I am grounded, and I don't want you to worry about me. I want you to continue working for the democracy of this country and for humanity. The war must stop.
So much.
I'm very grateful.
Yeah, I mean, it's got me a little choked up. I mean, you know, there's so many people that we always look for maybe the perfect victim in some of these situations, and I don't want to fall into that trap. But this man is pro peace. He's a pacifist. He wants better for his people, but I don't know if I could even be as gracious as he is. But he is a man that if he were to go back to a free Palestine, a free Palestine, he's a man that would stand for justice for Israelis. He would stand for equal rights for Jewish people within that free Palestine, that free Palestine. It's it's just remarkable to me, the things, the indignity that a people must suffer and the gaslighting that accompanies it. And you know, that brings me to Mahmoud Khalil. His wife recently gave birth to their child, and she had to give birth to their child without knowing the conditions of her husband. And while I appreciate Senator Van Hollen, Peter Welch meeting with their constituents and actually humanizing the issue, I would implore New York politicians. I think there's one in specific that's going on tour for the Fight the Oligarchy tour, who people do listen to. AOC, this does mean you. You've done great work in a lot of ways, but I think that there's a big um, vacuum that is left there with all these other politicians. And so you want to win presidency in the future. Well, I think that you have a great shot, but please humanize Mahmoud Khalil. Mahmoud Khalil is also a man who has talked about how Palestinian liberation and Jewish liberation are intertwined. And so these activists, they're not calling for the ethnic cleansing of Jewish people from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. They're calling for equal rights. And part of equal rights is that there is no ethno-religious supremacy in the area. Um, you know, but ultimately, we're in an era where we don't recognize that a part of free speech is you have to be okay with speech you disagree with. And I think that the pretext of combating anti-Semitism, first of all, is false. If you're imprisoning and deporting people based on advocating for Palestinian rights, that's not anti-Semitic, first of all. But second of all, like, are we going to just pretend that we deport people or protect Black college students when a white person says the N-word on campus? Are we going to just pretend that we protect women when men say, call them see you next Tuesday or whatever? Like, are we just going to pretend that we don't have like that people don't get deported for hate speech in this country? And there is a clear difference between threats of violence and like just being a bigot. Like, honestly, I can tell you from lived experience of a person that has been called terrorist, bin Laden, like camel jockey, sand N-word, all of these different, like, it hurts. Those words hurt. But like, can I go to a cop and say that arrest this person? Yeah, they'll laugh in my face. So like, we have to be really, really clear that in order to protect free speech, you have to be willing to protect the speech that you also don't agree with. And I think that like with losing Pope Francis, may that comrade rest in peace and power. I know that people have differing views when it comes to that, but he was a religious figure that very much cared about the lives of poor people. But I want to highlight that he himself, even though there was pressures against him from his own cardinals, he was a man who was engaging in video calls with the only Catholic church in Gaza every night since October 7th, and he was making sure that the parishioners were like seeing what they were eating, if they had access to food. That was a big question that he would be asking them. He was in communication with Muslim imams. He he had a ceremony, like I think it was last Easter or something like that, where he was washing the feet in outside the Vatican of Muslim refugees. And so, you know, he was willing to speak out because he had that mandate as the Pope. And I really appreciated the things that he did speak out about. So when like there's it shouldn't be courageous to be able to utilize your free speech in a country that has that as part of our First Amendment, freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, uh, freedom of you know, freedom of religion, freedom from and of religion. You know, all these things that we take for granted, we cannot just care about these things as it applies to when we will lose them. We have to care about these things when it comes to being in solidarity with other people, because the easiest way to lose your rights is to not care about somebody else's rights. So with that said, I would like to share another video. I want to go out on a positive note, and I would like to reclaim the name Israel with anti colonialist Hawaiian who had a voice of an angel. I'm sure many of you know who he is. And I think that this would be perfect way to end this video.
Someday we shall fall a star, wake up with clouds above behind. When trouble feels like lemon drops, high above the chimney top, that's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and a dream that you did to for why can't I? Oh, someday wish upon a star, wake up with clouds above behind. Trouble melts like a lemon drops, high above the chimney top, that's where you find me, oh,
That was Israel Kamakawiwoʻole. I apologize if I mispronounced that, but voice of an angel, advocate for his colonized Hawaiian peoples, was an advocate for being able to learn the Hawaiian language. And I implore a lot of you to read up the history of Hawaii and what the Hawaiian people have been through. And I think that that song just gets to me, gets to my heart, and it hits really deep. But he was an anti-colonialist comrade. So rest in power. He's no longer with us. Rest in power, Pope Francis, and Waigaruji ka Khalsa, Waigaruji ki Fateh. Until next time, take care.